Can you guys hear us, see us? Welcome to another VanHack webinar. This is the last webinar for RemoteCon. It's actually an extra bonus webinar that I'm super excited to share with you guys. Before we get started, let's just do that sound check. So I'm already seeing some people say yes in the chat. Thank you, Rodolfo. If anyone else, I think it's this side for you guys. If you can just say yes, or I can hear you, or something like that, just so we know that everything's working before we go forward. Hey, Mario, awesome. Thanks, Hamnat. Hey, Tamne. Great stuff, Kareem. Good to see you here, Kareem. Clement, awesome. Ramesh, awesome. Okay, we're good. Okay, so guys, today we have a very, very, very special webinar. We actually have not just one, but two guests. And the cool thing is that both guests actually have different kind of VanHack experiences. One is Danilo, who's a VanHacker who got hired and now is living here in Vancouver. We wanted to bring him on for RemoteCon because he started working remotely for his company, which is CTO.ai, and then was able to relocate a few months after having that remote start. And then we have Kyle, who's the founder and CEO, and he's going to talk about his experience of why and how he hired someone from abroad. So he hired a VanHacker, and maybe you guys can kind of get some insights as to what companies are thinking about when they're looking to hire someone, in this manner. So let's get right into it. We got a lot of stuff to cover. We're also going to be talking a lot about the CTO.ai dev community or DevOps community. You guys can talk better than me, but there's a lot to talk about. So let's get into it. And of course, if you guys have any questions, please just ask them in the chat. We probably won't get to them right away, but we're going to be definitely talking about them, answering your questions at the end of the webinar. So okay, let's get into it. Kyle, could you please start us off? Can you tell us a little bit about? Just going to go ahead and maximize you there. For your answer, and I'll keep switching back and forth. So guys, please meet Kyle. He's got a really exciting story. So Kyle, please tell us a little about your background and of course, what is CTO.ai?
Yeah, really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I'm just sending out a quick tweet here to the whole VanHack team. So my background is I've been an entrepreneur and a software engineer, self-taught software engineer, and an entrepreneur for a very long time. I started programming when I was about 8 years old, back home in Nova Scotia, which is a small province in Canada. And I actually dropped out of high school and sort of pursued tech as a career, starting out with tech support and then teaching myself how to program through open source. So I always had these ideas, and programming just became a way to create them. And through my 20s, I worked as a senior software engineer at a lot of different companies, spent a lot of time in open source, really honing my craft. I got really into JavaScript early on, as well as Node.js when that became a backend language. Before that, I was sort of dabbling in PHP. Was never sort of what I would call an engineer so much as I was more a hacker who was trying to create these ideas. And eventually, after working at a number of different startups, in Silicon Valley, in here in Vancouver, also in Toronto, Canada, I started my own company. So I started a company a few years ago, about 5 years ago, 2013, called Retzly, which was Stripe or Twilio, but in the real estate space. We help people build real estate products really quick, get them access to all the data in America instead of them having to go out and connect to 700 or so MLSs. And 3,300 public records counties around the world. So we brought in billions of data points on every home back to 1995. And we ended up selling that to Zillow Group, who's the biggest real estate website in North America. We sold that to them very early on before the business went too far. And what happened is after I left that, I was looking at what to do next. I was trying to invest into some software startups here in Vancouver. And what kept happening is they kept trying to hire me as their CTO. And I thought that was curious. So I started talking to them and asking them what their challenges were. And that's where we really started figuring out that there was this massive problem in the world, which is that $300 billion is lost every year because developers have a hard time being productive in sort of most early stage companies, especially. So these companies were saying, hey, we want to hire you as our CTO. But what they really meant is, hey, we need help implementing a DevOps practice. So at that point, we sort of set out on a mission to try to make DevOps accessible to the next 40 million developers. And here we are. We're hiring amazing people like Danilo. We've got a pretty great platform that is based in Slack that helps you build developer workflows that streamline the developer experience and let you do things like spin up Kubernetes clusters. The idea is that you basically write these workflows in any language. We have SDKs in JavaScript, Python, Bash. You publish them to our platform using, basically it's a container, and then it runs in any command line in any terminal, but also runs in Slack. And it gives you sort of this interactive experience that helps you to walk through the task, as well as collect metrics such as delivery metrics. So we're really excited about it. And we think that, especially with everybody going remote and, what you're talking about here at RemoteCon, the future of the developer experience is very much about being remote friendly. And I think we're going to talk about that a lot today.
Amazing stuff. Thanks, Kyle. Very, very cool. And yeah, we definitely will get into it. But next up is Danilo. So Danilo, tell us about yourself and how it's been working with the CTO.ai team.
So hello everyone. Good evening, good night, good morning. My name is Danilo Pires Kaltner. I am from Brazil, and I started working on. I also self-taught dev. I learned it by myself 8 years ago, and I started with PHP. But during my career, I pretty much learned a bunch of different languages in general, and I started. I started the process with VanHack, like studying to get a job, like on September of 2018, and I got a job with CTO.ai at September of 2019. So 1 year of preparation until I found the job. I have a background a background on PHP, but right now we are using Golang. So it has been quite an adventure trying a new language that it's really different from PHP and really cool.
Awesome. So let's let me just stick like this. I think chaining is too much. First off, hi for everyone who just joined. So hi Benjamin, hi Helan Kumar, hi Tadas. Good to see you again, Tadas here. Welcome guys. So let's talk quickly about the community you guys are trying to build. I just want to get that up front. What is it you guys are trying to do with that? Maybe if someone can share a link for people to join as well.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about that so we can understand?
For sure. I'll get a link going here too and also explain it. So, as a venture funded company, we have a big mission. We believe that, like we said, there's 300 billion that's lost in developer productivity. And we think this is mostly because DevOps tools and tools that developers use are complicated and not very intuitive. So developers spend a lot of time trying to solve a problem rather than delivering software to customers, which is ultimately the end game of the job, right? So what we try to do is a couple of things. First of all, we built a platform that's meant to enable people to adopt chat ops really quickly. But also what we did is we also opened up a Slack community. And that Slack community is completely free, and we are having, now hundreds of people joining it. And what we're trying to do is essentially bring people, developers together who care about the developer experience, who care about simplifying DevOps, who care about the future of remote work and are thinking about what do dev tools need to look like, and bring them into the community to have active conversations and learn together. So some of these are people who are joining our junior engineers who it's their first time working in the DevOps space, and they want to be able to interact with people who might have more experience. I've been working in DevOps since it was called sysadmin back in 2001. And other people are experts and thought leaders. I mean, we've got the person who wrote DevOps for Dummies in there as well. So there's a whole wide variety of groups, but it's meant to just be a really friendly place for anybody to come and talk about generally DevOps, the future of remote work, and we're really invested into that idea. And it's completely free. Some people come and never use our platform. Others come and they get started and they start working with our team in the platform. So Danilo's in there, I'm in there, our whole team's in there. And we try to make it a really good experience for everyone who joins and offer as much as we can to help people advance their skills in this area of DevOps.
Very cool, very cool. Fabio is saying, what an amazing product. Props. Gran is saying that's true. And then Grant also said DevOps is just sysadmin. And then Thomas
that's,
just said,
that's a fair way to think about it. I think so too. I'm just going to post a link here. Is the link in the chat so everyone can just join. There's just a quick form you have to submit to get access to it. So I'll just send the link to people in the chat right now. And feel free to join. Our whole team's in there to welcome you.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, like just how VanHack has a Slack group, and we kind of like to use that product to interface with everyone. You know, I think it's something that I totally recommend, and it's one of those things I talk about when we say how you can get hired abroad, or is to first virtually be in the city you want to be in. So this way you can both connect with people who are working in Canada, developers and companies, and learn from them. Maybe they'll even introduce you to a company who will get you hired one day. Plus, you'll be able to learn and use the kind of methodologies and product that they're creating in here. So if you guys are working with DevOps, or even if a developer who's curious about DevOps, actually that's something I'd be interested to know. Who's like the ideal person who wants to join this community? Is it any developer, or is it someone who has an interest in DevOps? Like, what would be the kind of benefit of join?
Yeah, it's a mix. I mean, we've tried, like, again, if the goal is to make DevOps accessible, we want to be really inclusive to all developers. We think DevOps, in that term, essentially is the new full stack developer. So I think it's pretty critical for every developer to have some experience with DevOps concepts, especially if you're going to join a smaller team. You're likely going to be involved in part of the DevOps workflow, and it's a really strong advantage on your resume to have that. So we're really open to the idea that it's likely going to be a mix of people. Obviously, we try to bring people who have a deep experience there as well, and everyone on our team has a lot of experience with DevOps, obviously. But I think the ideal environment is for anybody who is at a growth point in their career. They're looking to train and find new concepts to fill out their skill set. I think for any developer who's got experience on the front end or the front end of the back end, adding in a bit of experience with DevOps, understanding things like ChatOps, CI/CD, deployment management, even some Kubernetes, like having that skill, even if you don't know it from first principles, but being aware and being confident, most importantly, in those concepts, those are the people who are going to benefit the most. And they're also the people we want to welcome into the community, welcome into our platform, because they're people who we can enable to be successful in their career by adopting new tools and processes and skills into their resume.
Very cool. Awesome. And we're getting some really good questions here on the chat. Just quickly, first off, hi, Abdullah from Ghana. He asks, or he said something that I think is really cool. He said he thinks he missed a remote job opportunity because he didn't know about Docker and Kubernetes, and he thinks that this is great. So yeah, very, very cool. And then someone asked something interesting, Carlos. Yeah. So when CTO.ai speaks about DevOps, do you mean a specific tool for that, or do you mean the concept?
Wonderful question. So this DevOps is something that I think is like one of those umbrella shotgun terms that everyone's like, gonna hire me a DevOps, right? Like it's like a silver bullet, like, gotta get me some DevOps. Yeah. I really subscribe to the thought leadership of people like AWS. And so what AWS says is DevOps is essentially tools, processes, best practices, and ideology that enable companies to deliver at a faster pace than traditional software development. So it's I think people really tend to lean towards like, DevOps is tools, but I think DevOps is like almost as much about culture and like the thinking of enablement of your development team. And if you start from that, you can cast a pretty wide net and it can be quite soft. And especially like if you look in large organizations, DevOps has a really big thing around. It's really conducive to like change management, and they have a lot of these sort of like processes that are not at all about tools. When you look in large organizations, it's definitely more about tools. And you look at engineering culture, it's a lot about tools. So we definitely focus ourselves on how to make it really easy for developers to build good tools that work in the command line and Slack to simplify the developer experience. But what we expect is that others, and effectively like our community members, are the users of our platform, they're the ones who bring the experience, the ideology, the best practices to understand how to apply tools to their team. Because the thing about DevOps is like, it's relatively unique. Every team works a little bit differently. And so it's hard to be incredibly prescriptive about it. But that's also what makes it a really creative endeavor. But if you come into any team and you're thinking your mindset is, how can I be a 10x developer? And this isn't one person who's 10 times better than everyone else. This is one person who makes 5 people 2 times more productive using technology and strategies like DevOps. Now, what you're saying is, hey, I'm not just a good hire. I'm going to enable all the people around me to be better as well. And that's a real huge differentiator. So I think to Carlos's, I think feedback, or whoever it said it was about not knowing Kubernetes. I mean, you need to know the tools and the technology, but really you can impress people also with the best practices.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. And great questions, guys. Keep them coming. Let's switch gears a little bit here. And Danilo, I want to hear from your side. What was like your experience, with the whole process? You said it took you a year to get hired on VanHack, and I just want to take a note of that for everyone. A lot of people come and join VanHack and think they're going to get a job tomorrow, but sometimes it does take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Sometimes it does take 1 week. We have had some of those cases, but how was your experience going through the interview process? Any tips you have for other people, and then how was that remote starts experience as well? So let's talk maybe about the interview process and then remote start. And a few people are asking about your tech stack. You talked a little bit about that, about Golang, but maybe you can dive a little bit into that as well.
Sure. So working getting ready for international interviews, it was tough in the beginning, because it's very different from the interviews I was used to. There are multiple phases. Meanwhile, in Brazil, sometimes you can get a job in the first interview, like, cool, you're hired, and so getting ready for that and training on the interview practices it really helped me. But I could say that's something that it was on my mind during this whole year. It was just like trying, getting interviews even in the beginning. And I sucked at the beginning. It was like I was not doing good at interviews at all. I was not being able to answer the questions. But it's a slow process, the first month you won't be able to do much, but after 1 year, you're nailing every single question. You're one after another, because in the end, companies do ask the same questions of the interview practices. So if you're practicing on the interview practices, you are also answering the same questions for the companies, it was really, really cool the process was slow, but really cool. And I felt really, it was really, I felt really awesome to in the end, looking back at just 1 year and looking oh, I got the job at CTO.ai. That's awesome. That's so cool, People have been asking about my stack. I am a jack of all trades kind of guy. I know Python, I know Ruby, I know PHP, I know I work with SQL, I work with JavaScript. So I have an umbrella of technologies that I have worked with. Right now, for CTO.ai, I'm working on Golang, which is it's an awesome language. It's quick. It's very strict, but that's really good because everyone's on the same page in general. But it's lightning fast in general.
Very cool.
Have you gotten started with any of the Rust that we're doing yet, Danilo, or is that still to come?
I'm studying to start working on Rust. We are also using Rust, which is 10 times faster than Go, which is crazy sometimes to think about that. But I'm studying to get into some of the parts of the system that are using Rust.
Yeah, I'll just throw it a big up to Danilo. Danilo joined the team, and obviously we're not using the most dynamic type languages here, JavaScript all over the place. Go and Rust are definitely challenging languages to learn, and you ramped up really well. And honestly, it has been critical in a lot of also the Slack work that we've done as well. So a lot of stuff around APIs and a lot of the complex business logic that runs the platform, which has been amazing.
Thank
Cool.
you. I have been enjoying a lot working with you. Like it's the stacking stack is
Oh, stop!
amazing.
They're gonna think I put you up to it.
Sorry.
Awesome.
So
Go ahead, Danilo, please.
I was sorry. Sorry for interrupting you. I was going to talk about the remote experience. Do you have anything to add, Ilya?
No, yeah, please. How was the first few months remotely?
So working remote on the beginning was kind of tough, but that's okay because I was one of the only ones that was working remote. Meanwhile, everyone in the company was working on the office. So I was kind of worried that I was going to like have to do 2 times faster, like to get what everyone was talking about, But using Slack to consolidate all the talk was really a game changer here because the company the company was really transparent about everything that was happening, the meetings, what were the plans in general. So it was it was not a mind blower to understand what were the priorities in general. And having a DevOps stack and a pipeline was a huge, it was huge for the company because for people that for someone that for a poor DevOps stack, it's really hard to teach to new developers, like, oh, you have to go to that SSH and you have to go to that folder and do git pull something. Like since we have a pipeline, it was really easy to understand each step and start each one of those steps. And it was also really transparent, again, with Slack. Every time that we needed to deploy something, we just go to Slack, talk with everyone about that, and deploy it, put the hash on Slack, so everyone kind of knows where we are getting to it, But over communication is also important when working remote. So I was the kind of guy that was on the beginning of the week like, good morning, everyone. But it was kind of a way to say like, hey, I'm here. If anyone needs to talk, I'm here. Let's work together, But over communication is even more important when you're remote because you have to be absolutely clear on what you're doing and what are your questions,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll just throw something out there as well as like if there's a case study for how to be successful using remote as a pathway to even relocation, just remote as like Danilo's that case study. Not only was he the guy who showed up every morning, was like, hey, everyone, remember me, which is all you have to, because in a co-located team, they're just going to look over the shoulder and talk to each other. But also he learned it really quickly. And one of the things that I think is really important about just like the DevOps philosophy is this is really hard to obtain too, but we try to always have this mindset of, new people should be able to commit code and deploy to production on day one. Because if your process is easy enough and transparent enough and they can figure out how to do that, whether it's by pipelines or through seeing other people do it on Slack, then they ramp up and they have confidence sooner and you get over that sort of imposter syndrome that we all have when we start a new technology project, right?
Very cool. Yeah, sometimes I ask companies like, how long did it take for X person to after they get hired, push code, and it's really cool to hear that when they do it quickly. Also, just quickly, Danilo, you mentioned interview practice. I just want to make sure. Were you a VanHack premium member? I think you were, right?
I was a VanHack premium member. Like I got on Black Friday. I will admit that, but I was trying to do as much as the interview practice as I could.
Awesome. I bring that up because today is the last day of our Black Friday promotion for April. We've extended it one week into May. So I'm going to put it here on the webinar. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but just quickly, since today's the last day, I want to make sure that everyone knows about it. You do get, I think, almost 50 hours of English interview practice per month, and connections to our team and help with your profile, et cetera, et cetera. All the information on the page. So yeah, just check that out. And the deadline is, I think, in a few hours to be able to join and get that promotion. So the way it works is, or we also have we have 15 hours left, so 15 and a half hours left. So if you don't like it for any reason the first month, you get a full refund, so you have no risk to join. Okay, cool. All right, let's get back to it. No, and VanHack Premium is not required, Faisal, to get a job at VanHack. It's just basically an extra practice that you get. Anyone can get a job for VanHack. Most people who get a job with VanHack are just normal kind of free regular account members, but it definitely helps. And if it gives you that little bit of a shine up to get more confidence in yourself. For me, the biggest benefit is the live English practice, so you can improve your English. There's a lot of really good devs who can speak JavaScript so well and not so much English, so you try and improve that as well. Anyway, a couple of people asked here, is CTO.ai hiring? So Kyle, do you want to just quickly answer that one, please?
We're not right now, but we will be again in the future. So right now we're really focused on keeping our team really small and tight and growing our community. But we will definitely be hiring more again in the future. And so with that regard, definitely keep us in mind. We do have job posting up for senior software engineers because this is a role that is always really important to us. We're not hiring as much as we were. We hired a lot of people in the past, and now we're sort of in a slower period of hiring given everything that's going on in the world, but we will be hiring in the future. So if you're interested, definitely check us out. We'd love to have you submit your resume, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we are actively hiring again.
Nice. And Faisal also asked, how do you stay updated with opportunities at CTO.ai? I'm guessing the best way is to join the Slack community.
Definitely join the Slack community, follow us on Twitter, the usual kind of stuff, right? As well as if you join you actually submit your resume into our career page, we certainly can, we'll keep your resume. And as we go through our hiring cycles, we always go back and we go through all the people who have applied. So if you don't get a response from us right away, just know that we're getting a lot of submissions. Even right now, I can see them pouring in from everybody here. So there's going to be quite a few to work through. But this is one of those major reasons why if you sharpen up your DevOps skills to differentiate yourself from the crowd, you can really stand out and your resume can really stand out. So I encourage everybody, at very least, to join our community. I see Kareem just pointed to the link as well. And one of the things we'll be doing over the coming weeks is rolling out some more different content types about what is DevOps, how to be proficient in DevOps, DevOps 101, these kinds of things to help people kind of level up.
Fantastic. And that leads me to my next question, Kyle, is what do you look for when hiring someone, especially an international developer? What is it that, of course, aside from being a DevOps, knowledgeable in DevOps, what are other traits that you think could make a difference for everyone here who's on the line?
Yeah, one of the things that's funny about my perspective on hiring is I don't put technology first so much. I think it's really good to see that somebody has experience with Kubernetes or experience with AWS on top of experience with front end and back end languages, whether it's Node.js or PHP or Go, and anything on the front end with JavaScript, React, Vue. I mean, you're basically just looking at technology trends and just trying to align yourself. But in my view, having done this for 20 years, technology comes in and out of fashion. And the things that you're training yourself on now are not at all the things you're gonna have to train yourself on later. And to be honest with you, that could be very true of our tech stack as well. We evolve our tech stack and we give ourselves permission to throw away things we've written, try new languages like Rust. So, I mean, I look for those things, but more so what I look for is personality traits. I'm looking for people who have a GitHub profile, who have spent some time looking and contributing potentially to open source outside of whatever their core work is, because they recognize that that's going to actually build their portfolio. It gives me the opportunity to look at how they're solving problems, right? So I love to see somebody who has a GitHub profile that has some sort of pull request where they've submitted it to a real project. And there's been some back and forth with the project maintainers, because it helps me to understand how do they collaborate in an open environment with different people. Beyond that, I'm looking for a lot of self-directedness. people who don't necessarily need everything explained to them. They're creative and they take initiative. I'm looking for people who are, clearly good communicators. And I think that's one of the things that you guys have identified is how important that is, especially for developers. We want people who will go that extra mile to over communicate and build personal relationships as well. And then I think the other thing that we're looking for is just people who are, kind of driven, who can't really stand to see a problem go unsolved. There's something about that aspect of a software engineer where you got to solve the problem that I think is, if you can find that and bottle it, I'd love to start that business, to be honest with you, because I think that's one of the most quality things, especially in early stage business. So things like DevOps is also important to me because it says to me that person is thinking about how to enable those around them. And it also says to me that they're not going to be a lone wolf who just runs off and does their own thing. They're going to work well in a team environment. And those are the kinds of things that we really care about in our business.
Nice. Awesome. That's a lot of, I think, good tips for everybody. So I see some people asking if you can review their GitHub. Faisal,
sure.
Maybe if you email Kyle, I'm not sure, but yeah.
Here's what I'll do. I'll open up a repo on my GitHub @Slayjax, and I want all of you to come submit a pull request with any piece of code that you want to submit, and I will code review any pull request I get. Okay, so go to github.com/Slayjax, SLAJAX. I'll put it in the chat, and I'll create a VanHack repo right now. And anybody who submits a pull request to that, I will code review your pull request for you.
That's awesome. I don't think we've ever had an offer like that before on a VanHack webinar. So you guys are in luck that you showed up today. Thanks so much, Kyle. And everybody, there's the link. Good luck. And hopefully just I would take this as a learning opportunity and kind of go and enjoy it. Awesome. So Danilo, how was it for you making that transition then when you did that remote start? You had that let's say, was it 2-3 months, right, remotely? And then you moved here to Canada. How was that experience for you, and how are you enjoying life here in your new country?
So it was 3 months working remote. And because of that, it's also really easy to get through the documentation process, because this can take a while. If I had just 1 month to get all the documentation sorted out, I have no idea how I would be able to do that. So this is one advantage that you have. You can take some more. You can have more time to get everything done. And my partner and I, we have come here to Canada on December of last year, December 3rd, in time for Christmas. And in the first month was really crazy with our moving, getting a house, building furniture, buying things, getting used to commute in general, but you get used to it. And Vancouver is such a cool city to live. It's really beautiful, but also really easy to navigate. So it is. I came from São Paulo, and people from São Paulo can attest that, but São Paulo is tricky. It's really, really tricky to navigate in general. So coming to Vancouver was like a, night and day to me. Also working with everyone on the office and meeting everyone, it was kind of weird. Everyone was making jokes that, oh, so you're real. You're just not like a torso on video, At the beginning was kind of awkward, but it was really fun because we have working for 3 months on Slack, and suddenly we are talking. It was so natural to everyone to start talking. It was amazing, really cool.
But then you came, and now we're all working from home again on Slack again because of everything that's going on in the world. So all the credit to you. You just finally got here, got that in-person interaction, and we were like...
Yes, but here's the thing. I had a head start, so now I can spread the knowledge to everyone that didn't work remote. I'm like, hey, so here's the thing about Slack. Do that if you don't want to get interrupted. I always over communicate. Like I am kind of, I can teach other people how to work remote. So that's also a trade there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so funny. You were the original Slacker there, in the good sense of the word. Cool guys. So, and then for you, Kyle, like, how was it? I guess, was it any different? Like having Danilo here in Canada. I guess now everyone's working remotely. What's it like? Managing and kind of how are you thinking about it? The COVID situation as a startup founder and person who's hiring people. I think a lot of people are curious whether companies are hiring, whether they will hire, what their mindsets are. I've seen a lot of questions here about that.
Yeah, I mean, it changes the game significantly. I think maybe what I'll speak to is like my mindset ahead of COVID and my mindset after. So my mindset ahead of COVID was, okay, remote is good. And for anyone who's going to move across the world to work with us, I'm totally open for the idea of like starting out remote, because I think it's really important that both sides have a solid feeling about the relationship before you make that kind of commitment. And here in BC and in Canada, at least, the Employment Standards Act has the idea of a 3-month probationary period either way, so that both people can decide on that. And so I think especially in a situation where someone's relocating, this is just like a natural way to work, in my opinion. Like you should, before you relocate across the world, work this way remote with anybody. But however, what I think changed a lot is like as we came into COVID, so before I switch gears, so in that old way of thinking, I was very much pro remote as a way to get started, make sure everybody's comfortable, make sure it's working well, make sure Danilo feels good about it. And then I think it's really important that Danilo relocates here, because we also need that in-person time. And whether we're a remote company or not, I think being able to get in-person time is important. Now, fast forward, and with COVID, how does that change the game? Well, obviously, a lot of companies, I believe, are slowing their hiring. That is a reality. And it's a bit of a mix where some are actually reducing hiring, some are just slowing their hiring. Others are looking at it and they're going, look, this is an opportunity to get a whole lot of really great talent on board. So let's lean into hiring. So there's a mix of different perspectives. I think the perspective in the media might be that people are slowing their hiring. We chose to slow our hiring down right now to sort of take a wait and see approach. This is mostly because we're in an early stage in our business. We are a startup. But I do know that there's a lot of people who are hiring. A lot of my colleagues here in Vancouver are still hiring, are very actively still hiring. Shout out to people like Spocket, who are, I know, actively still hiring. Rise People, I saw on LinkedIn, are actively still hiring. So there's a lot of people hiring. And I think that in this world, it blows the gates off of the whole remote thing. It's almost now the assumption that you're going to hire remote. Now, the question is are you hiring remote and then relocating? Well, obviously relocation is much harder right now, but as COVID starts to clear up and we start to go back to normal, what I think it's going to do is completely normalize that starting grace period of like, let's work on this remotely, with still acknowledging that the fact that relocation is the right outcome. And I think what it'll do is it'll actually open up people's minds, companies' minds, to starting and hiring from abroad and accelerate the mission that you guys are on. I would expect tenfold. Like when I look at what's coming out of COVID, I think two things are going to be true. I think, remote is going to be way more mainstream, and that's really good for companies like us who are trying to build developer tools and experiences in Slack or remote teams. But I also think the global talent pool is going to be so much more accessible to the average company. And so I think there's never been a better time for people to be thinking about how to level up their skills in line with the market segments that they may want to attract. And in this case, maybe it's North American markets, because I think coming out of this, companies are going to be so willing to hire remote talent and still very interested in relocation for the reasons that are still going to be important afterwards. Even more so, like we need to have personal connections in our work, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also things like time zones, right? Like if you're living in Nigeria or India and you want to work in Vancouver, for example, you definitely want to be closer.
Well, That's a really good point. Like, so even pre-COVID, and this is something probably we loosened up, at post-COVID, but pre-COVID, our sort of like remote policy was we wanted to hire for remote people. We wanted to hire remote people who had at least 2 years experience in a remote setting and who were time zone aligned enough to overlap with our core hours, sort of like 9:30 to 4:30, by at least 6 hours. So it was really kind of like focusing on people who might be within plus minus 2 hours standard deviation of GMT -7, right? So that's mostly like North America, South America. And so that's where like a geography like Brazil is so valuable, in my opinion, because Danilo and our time zone, while he's still in Brazil, was very time zone aligned, but it can be harder when time zone alignment isn't there. And that's one of the things that I think is really important to overcome for anyone who's in a different time zone is you really want to think through how can you align as much your working schedule with the company and the team that you're working with. And that might be challenging for you if your time zone is like on the other side of the world. But what it will do is make sure that you're aligning with the best interests of the team. And I think that's a really important thing to watch out for, because it can be a big challenge for recruiters and companies if they're looking at hiring you and your nights are our days sort of scenario, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I guess it always like is a personal thing too. Like some people I know are working till 4 or 5 in the morning and they're okay with it, but also you got to take in consideration a lot of different factors there, family, just general lifestyle. How long can you actually do that? But no, there's definitely a solution or a way for anyone who's talented and kind of dedicated and ready to work hard. Because there are a lot of companies like CTO.ai that are hiring developers and will continue to do that in the future. So let's now go to the questions from the community here. So guys, we have about 15, 20 minutes left, and just want to say thank you so much so far for hanging out with us. We do have seeing a lot of really good questions here. So Renato asks about age. This is a question, I guess, more for Kyle, but either of you can answer. What about age? Is that a factor? If someone's like maybe over 40, or how do you guys look at that in terms of hiring developers who might be a little bit older?
I don't think that really factors into my consideration. I look at experience. And experience is one of those things where I have a lot of experience, but I'm not that old because I got an early start and I kind of went into a lot of really challenging situations where I gained a lot of experience. I want to see somebody who has whatever time they've spent. It doesn't matter to me if it's less or more. And honestly, if you're more experienced, like you're older, you're going to have you have more opportunity for experience. But I want to see people who have applied their time to things that gives them a rich experience, whatever that might be. So if you're 2 years in, if you've spent, one of those years doing open source and one of those years at a startup where, even that startup failed, I know that you have a really rich experience. Now, if you spent 2 years sort of not doing any of those things, then maybe you don't have the kind of experience. Now, by virtue of if you're, let's say you're 45, and in theory, you've been in the workforce for 20, 25 years, if there is, 20, 25 years where the first 10 years was like in IT, and then you sort of eventually moved into sort of somewhat programming, but your transition was more 4 or 5 years, then what I'm hearing in my head is, well, you didn't really apply the time you had to aggressively transition towards a programming career. You took a slightly longer cycle on that. I think either one of these is okay, but what I want to see is that self-directedness that I talked about earlier, and that sort of passion for programming. And I think when you see people who apply their time to gain as much experience as possible, whether it's with the tools or in the workforce, that to me suggests that person is going to do the same thing with their time at your company. And that's what I look for more than anything. So it's, if you said, hey, look, I went out and taught myself Kubernetes over 8 weeks, I'd be really impressed because, most people can't do that. It might take them, 16 weeks. And so that's a really rich experience in a small amount of time. And so I don't really think about it like age. I think about it more like, what is the time you've applied to gain as much experience, and how are you thinking about applying that experience to help other people as well?
Nice. Thanks, Kyle. And Renato, good question. Fernando also had a similar question, so that's awesome. Silvio, age is just a number, guys. It's all about how quick you can learn and what your work ethic and knowledge. Awesome. Cool. So any other questions, guys? Or if Danilo, Kyle, if you guys have any other tips you want to share, please go ahead.
So I have seen a lot of people like talking about their stack, like that they know PHP, Laravel, or they know like Vue.js. Guys, do not get attached to your stack. Like really go out of your boundaries. Like don't say something like I only work with Java or I only work with JavaScript, because I came from a PHP background, you know, and PHP is crazy popular, at least in São Paulo, it's crazy popular, but I only got like one opportunity on PHP. Like I got one job interview related to PHP on Vancouver. So I really needed, like, for me, it was like, I really needed to reach out of my boundary. That's how I began to learn Golang and other languages in general. Like, but still, like, go out of like what you know, because this will make a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can build on that too. I mean, this is something that I think I've seen is the most common misconception about people who are abroad looking at how to apply to companies in North America. Again, technology doesn't matter that much because it changes so much. But what is current trend in North America is often not current trend more broadly in the world. I've seen a lot more people more broadly in the world come into applying in North American jobs, citing things like Laravel, citing things like Angular. And in my mind, those are not what I would call current trend. Those are sort of like maybe last wave technologies. And so I think there's a real opportunity for anyone who's abroad to try to really proactively look ahead at what is the next trend and be on that cutting edge roughly, and training on that cutting edge and demonstrating proficiency in that cutting edge. Now, you can't be somebody who has 10 years Kubernetes experience. Kubernetes only been around for like 4 years or something like that. You know, and one of the things that made me gave me the most success, I should say, in my developer career was I got into Node.js very early when it was 0.2. And I followed that community as it grew, and I built a reputation and experience and examples of the work that I did. But I never said to anyone, I'm a Node.js developer. I would never apply to a job and say, I'm a Node.js developer. That limits my abilities in their eyes. What I am is a software engineer who's smart enough to figure out any kind of syntax and solve any kind of problem. It just so happens that Node.js is what's interesting right now. And so that's the thing that I've been developing my skills in. So I think, to echo Danilo's point, whatever you assume is your stack, you should probably blow that up every 2 to 3 years and learn a new stack. And after you do that a few times, what you start to learn and realize is, as a developer, your skill is not technology. Your skill is problem solving, creativity, and communication skills. Technology is just a hammer you swing to build a house. So don't get stuck on one approach, because technology is constantly reinventing itself, and you need to as well. And you will learn that skill of learning, which is more valuable than any particular, specific programming language.
Very cool. That is definitely true, but I'm gonna, like, what do you do in the situation where a company says, hey, we need someone with 6 years experience in Ruby on Rails, and if they have 5 years and 11 months, we're not going to talk to them?
They're lying. Yeah. Okay. So you don't know how many times I've applied at a job where they're like, you must have a university degree. And I'm like, well, I dropped out of high school, but like, look what I built. And they're like, you're hired. Right. Like, it's some of this is like, it's soft skills. It's like, how do you influence people and impress them and show them that you're passionate, and that stuff is more important more of the time, right? So really, what's happening when people and companies say that 6 years or whatever is that you're legally applying at a company that's slightly larger, who gets a high volume of applications, and they have to have some screening criteria that the recruiter goes through before they hand it on to the hiring manager. Once they hand it on to the hiring manager is going to be like, well, you know what, like, we don't really do that much Java here, so like 3 years is probably fine. Or they might go, you know what, it's really hard to hire senior engineers, so I'm going to be really flexible on this. The thing you should realize is that the odds are in your favor, and it may not feel like that as a job hunter sometimes, but it is way harder for companies to find senior talent than it is for developers to find companies to work at. Developers are in demand, and as an abroad person, someone who's abroad and like applying into a new market, you do have to put yourself out a little bit more to get through that screening process, because there's a set of biases that come with it. And I may not know the company that you worked at, right? The number one thing I look at in the beginning from a screening perspective is, did you work at Google, Facebook, Amazon? Like this is how the people think. Mm-hmm. But if you go, look, here's 5 different languages I've learned, and here's examples of things I've built, it's likely, whether you have a year or 2 less experience, that if that gets through the hiring manager is going to recognize that. The recruiter may not, because they're kind of just checking boxes, but the hiring manager is going to look at that and they're going to go, whoa, look at this person's GitHub. They're really active, and they're really active on these new projects. And look, they made a contribution to Kubernetes. So like, heck, they've only been doing this for 2 years, but like if they're contributing in the open source community and they're 2 years in, then they're confident about their abilities. I want that person. And so I think you kind of have to get past the sort of like, check boxes a bit. And really, and also be creative in how you write your cover letter and how you present your resume and these sorts of things. Anything you can do to stand out and get past that recruiter screen so you get to the hiring manager. The hiring manager is going to give you more of that real world assessment of like where you are at. And I think it's really good that if you get to a hiring manager and for whatever reason you don't get hired, like thank them and ask them for feedback, because a hiring manager is going to be the person who will most often give you the feedback that you need to hear. Most won't, because of just like legal reasons and whatnot. But sometimes if you approach it right, you can actually get some of that feedback where they're not being critical of you or saying why they didn't hire you. You're just saying like, how could I put my resume in a better position for hiring managers? How could I do a better job of interviewing? And if you think about it like that, you're also demonstrating to them, which might be helpful in the future. You're demonstrating to them like you're not going to give up. You're just constantly want to improve your way into a successful career. And that's kind of people hiring managers want it back, in my opinion.
Nice. That's so true. And I think the biggest challenge a lot of times for people is to get past that first screen, because the way that the recruiters look at it is they have like a formula. It's a very much like black and white, no wiggle room. They don't really get technology. So they're just looking for, hey, keyword, buzzword, do you have that? Does it say 10 years experience in Java or whatever it might be? So it is definitely a challenge, but I think the tip I want to highlight for everyone here is getting your cover letter, your resume, having a personal website, a strong GitHub. All these things make a huge difference. It's all about how you present yourself virtually, because you can't like physically go to the office of the company, especially nowadays, right? You can't physically go to the office in Toronto or Berlin or wherever the company might be, knock on their door and say, hey, I'm a great developer. I think even if you're living in that city, you probably couldn't do that. But you have to be presenting virtually, like digitally, with all those different tools you have at your disposal. So great tips, Kyle. Danilo, I have a question that a few people asked here is, how did VanHack Premium help you on the path to getting hired? I think Renan asked that. So as a VanHack Premium member, do you recommend a path to follow to succeed, I guess, both through your VanHack experience and in generally to get hired?
So that really depends on how comfortable you are and what are your plans related to getting a job or relocation in general. So you have to have that in your mind. But for myself, I was the kind of guy that was on interview classes and trying to every small change, making every single small change on my resume. Like if I didn't get if I send my resume to a job opportunity and I didn't get an answer, negative or positive, I would tweak just a little my resume, and just a little, and just a little, and little by little, my resume was starting to be more attractive to the jobs opportunities. But I was also a kind of guy that was not shy of getting just go to interviews, just start sending my resume, just start to you will suck in the beginning for sure. It's not easy, but little by little, experience by experience, interview by interview, like one interview at each time, you will get there. And another thing that you have to keep on your mind is this interview could be the one. This interview could be the hiring one. Because if you, after a while trying so many interviews, you kind of get down, you get a little like, oh, I don't think they are going to hire me. No, don't think like that. Think like, no, this is it. This is the one that's going this is going to be the one, because sometimes you may have interviews that are like 3 hours of interviews with one dev after another, and you may think something like, oh no, this is too much for me, or no, this could be the one. This could be exactly the one that will get you hired. So don't lose hope. Keep studying. Keep trying, and always adjust the cover letter, the resume, your online presence. So LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, like people look at those things. So always adjust little by little, and you get there. Like don't go something like, oh, people like, I didn't get any answer from the opportunities I applied, and don't do anything. Like take action, do something, change.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that those are like really, really good tips. One person in the chat said, I applied to 3 or 4 jobs and I didn't hear any back from anything. What am I doing wrong? So you really, maybe 3 or 4 is not very much. We had a VanHacker who applied to over 1,000 jobs, and he got hired in Ireland one day, or like a few years ago. And his English was like really bad, but he got it because this is really, really good designer. Kind of stories like that, stories like yours, Danilo, about going for it. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You just need one. You just need one job, and it'll change your entire life, right? So
Drew Houston from Dropbox has a quote that I love. Don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.
Yes.
I have that written on my wall. I look at it every day because it's whether it's job hunting or it's anything else. It's so true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Starting a company, I don't know, everything, just getting into the university you want to get, all those things. So guys, we do only have a couple minutes here. I just want to use this time to say thank you to both Danilo and Kyle for sharing their amazing experience. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I'll give the last word to you. And last thing I will say, two things from my side. Premium promotion finishes in 15 hours. Just join. You don't like it, get your money back. You have nothing to lose. Invest in yourself, especially now you're hanging out at home. Get to take some online classes with us, hang out in real time with me and a few of our great teachers. And 2, join the CTO.ai DevOps community to get connected with all the amazing knowledge, best practices, and improve yourself. Now, there's never been a better time to invest in yourself. So please go ahead and do that. With that, I'll leave the floor. Maybe Kyle, you can say kind of your last tip, and then Danilo, and then we'll sign off here.
Yeah, no, this has been really great. Thanks for having us. I hope that some of what we shared has been helpful for all of you. I look forward to seeing those pull requests on GitHub. I haven't seen any come in just yet, but definitely do that. And I'll give you some code review as well as check out your GitHub profile. And just echo what Ilya said about our community. It's completely free. As well as a lot of the tools that we're doing with the Ops platform, which is our product, are open source. So if you are looking to get a start with your GitHub profile and demonstrate some open source, that's actually a really great way to do that. Join the community, start learning some DevOps, maybe you contribute to some of our open source projects. And we've got some developers like Danilo who can help you with that. And then the last thing I'll say is just as a thank you to everyone for doing this. And I can already see a ton of people have joined the community. We're gonna share, and I don't know if you already shared this or not, Ilya, but we're gonna share a video of a talk that I did in London about lean DevOps, which is a really great starting point for understanding DevOps and how companies in the startup culture here in North America really think about DevOps. This is something that we haven't shared publicly yet, so we're gonna share it for the first time today in the Slack community. So if you join our community, that video will be waiting for you. And the last thing I'll say is that we're also going to start a weekly show on Friday, just sort of like a live stream where we talk about this week in DevOps and some of the new things that are coming on. So these are some of the things that you'll be able to tap into if you join our Slack community. You can see Tristan here just posted the link again in chat. So sign up over there, and we'll post some of that content in there, and hopefully that'll all be helpful as you start and continue on your journey to VanHack success.
Yeah, for myself, thank you very much, Ilya, for inviting us. Thank you very much, everyone that was present here. And I see everyone in Vancouver. Really, like, don't lose hope. It's one step at a time.
Awesome. Well, thank you as well to everyone joining. Thanks again, Kyle, Danilo. Guys, go ahead and join that Slack group. You know, it's knowledge. It's free. If you want to get yourself better, I highly recommend you do it. We'll be doing a lot more webinars in the next few weeks, guys. Keep an eye on that. And yeah, everyone have a great day wherever you are. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.